Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. You already know me, but just in case, my name is Sarah Lang. I work at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and this webinar is part of the Knowledge Bites series, which is a part of the Southern Vermont Economy Project, which is building capacity around economic development and workforce development. We just got our second round of funding, so we have another 2 years of capacity building in our future. Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Cooper. I'm the Community and Economic Development Specialist at the Bennington County Regional Commission. And so today we'll be talking about the 2020 project submission phase for the Southern Vermont CEDS. That phase is opened up now, and so we'll talk a little bit more for those of you on the call now or on the conference now. For those of you who may be joining it or viewing it later on down the road, the goal for today is to get a sense of what you get out of project submission, why we have project submission, and a little bit of background for those of you who are maybe getting involved with the CEDS for the first time. So, to sort of follow up on that last statement about, for some of you who are having your first exposure to the CEDS, a CEDS is a comprehensive economic development strategy, sort of a federally outlined program that is carried out locally, sort of at home. And last year, it's from 2017 through 2019, we are in a planning phase for the Southern Vermont Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which would include both Bennington County and Windham County, along with the town of Weston. So a sort of a larger service area than either sort of county works at typically, but over the last few years, we've been expanding into the Southern Vermont mindset. And so you can see there a number of the topics that the CEDS itself addresses, all really surrounded around the idea of who we are, where do we want to go, and how do we get there. For more about that public process, the outreach, and for the copy of the CEDS document itself, you can click on the link down at the bottom or cut and paste and put it into your browser. That'll give you a whole lot of background additionally on what that process looked like and what the outcomes were. And there, as you can see, is the cover page for that CEDS. The CEDS has a shelf life of 5 years, so the one that we currently have will be active through 2024.
Great. So just some fast facts about comprehensive economic development strategies in our region. As Jonathan mentioned, this is the Southern Vermont CEDS, and we are in the second year. We accomplished that process last year in 2019. That process was a group effort between the Regional Economic Development Group in Bennington County and the Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies Group in the Windham County. These two committees worked together over about 9 or 10 months to help put on a lot of public meetings, to gather information from residents and businesses. And they will continue to work together throughout the 5 years of the shelf life of this CEDS. We are assembling a project ranking committee. This happens every year that we ask for projects. We have people that are not part of the two groups or our organizations. We put them on this committee, and they do the ranking of the committee, or sorry, of the projects. With those rankings, there are vital projects that are chosen, and those will be announced at our 4th annual Southern Vermont Economic Summit on May 28th at Mount Snow. And just some numbers from last year's project submission process. There were 71 projects submitted by 47 organizations or towns. And as far as the project geography goes, one of the questions in the submission form is, what geographic region do you cover? Is it just one town? Is it a group of towns? Or is it the entire southern Vermont region? And so we had 24 single town projects, 18 multi-town projects, and 29 region-wide projects. So that really gives you, a great picture of, the types of geography that these projects are covering, and hopefully, lets you know that, whether it's a project you want to submit for your town, or it's only happening in one spot, or it's covering the entire region, we want all to know about all of those projects.
Okay, and before I detail the vital projects from 2019, I'd like to ask and confirm that the audio is clear for everyone, and so if you're having some issues, if my microphone is not picking this up well, please let me know. Sarah, does it sound okay on your end?
It sounds good to me on my end.
Okay. So one of the outcomes of the project process is a ranking of those vital projects, or an identification of those vital projects that the review committee that we'll talk more about later on sees as being really an outstanding match for the goals of the CEDS and the projects that really have the most potential to benefit the broader region. And so there were 6 announcements, 6 that we identified and discussed at the summit last year. And as you can see, they don't all have the same geography, and that's something that sort of demonstrates what Sarah was just discussing. We had 2 sort of specific location-based projects in Wilmington and Bennington that were recognized as vital projects: the Old School Enrichment Center in Wilmington and Phase 2 of the Putnam Block Redevelopment in Bennington. But there are also some regional assessments. It isn't just bricks and mortar that makes the project vital. Extending Massachusetts' rail expansion in the Pioneer Valley into Vermont, assessment by the Wyndham Regional Commission, and another sort of regional focus is on village water and wastewater assessments, so financial modeling and the sort of feasibility of bringing that scale development to bear. There was been a couple of things that were sort of southern Vermont-wide. The SoVermont Marketing and Recruitment Program, or SoVermont.com, an initiative that was sort of collaboration between the 2 regional economic development entities, and a consortium of projects around entrepreneurship and startup mentalities, Startup 802, based out of CCB, the Lightning Jar in Bennington, and Instigate VT in the BDCC offices in Brattleboro as well. So a range of geographies, a range of focus areas, and project phases, shovel ready versus assessment ready. So there's a lot of room in the project submission process for projects wherever you are and however large your organization is. If we get advanced to the next slide, I think we'll take a peek at some of the objectives in the CEDS, and the notion here on the next 2 slides to look at the 5 objectives that's sort of what success looks like, or what we want to do to best bring about the change we're looking for with the CEDS. The overarching goals of that document are to strengthen business and support people. And so you'll see in these 5 objectives that there's some ways that we're looking about, that we wish to go about doing that. The first is to increase our population. 2020 is a census year, and so by 2021 we expect to have gotten the bad news about the demographic trends in southern Vermont. It'll mirror the trends in Vermont at large, but it will be a little more severe here. We expect growth to have leveled off, perhaps even declined slightly since 2010. So we need to increase our population. We feel also that if we want to bring more jobs and opportunities into southern Vermont, that we need to expand our business infrastructure, and that is one of 3 objectives around the notion of infrastructure. Sarah, if we could advance the slide, we'll see the remaining 3. We need to improve our physical infrastructure, those critical improvements to become resident and business ready. We will need more people, but we will also need more infrastructure or infrastructural upgrades to be resident and business ready the way that we'd like to be. And we want to enhance social infrastructure. That's the sense of community and belonging and place is something that's really baked into life in Vermont and life in southern Vermont in particular. We want to make sure that the quality of life and stability that's required for quality of life is in place for all residents. And finally, we want to support or strengthen economic development capacity. We don't need economic development professionals and partners who think in terms of somebody oughta. We need them to be people who think in terms of feasibility and implementation, and to have a economic development sort of cohort that is skilled and focused on helping bring the projects that are ongoing or new projects to bear, so that we can see the development and growth that we need to see in Southern Vermont. Sarah.
Wonderful. So oftentimes we get the question from people who are looking to submit a project, what's the value of submitting? Why would I submit my project to the CEDS? And oftentimes there is a little bit of a misunderstanding that people think that there is funding attached to submitting a CEDS project, and so we really like to sort of cover this what's the value of submitting a project in these informational webinars, because we don't want people to get the wrong idea or think that they'll be getting money, but there are many benefits that don't include direct funding. For why someone should be submitting a CEDS project. So typically, when you submit your CEDS project, this indicates to federal agencies that your project's aligned with the 5-year plan. And so on some of the grant applications or funding forms, there's often a question about, is this project aligned with a CEDS in your region? And by checking that box, you get a few more points towards potentially getting that funding. Additionally, it informs state and regional partners about your project. So this helps really increase visibility of your project, which then might increase access to technical assistance, as well as awareness of financial resource assistance. So, a lot of times projects that are submitted to the CEDS will, the regional organizations that do work in this realm use this list to really see what's going on in our communities. And then they might be coming to you and saying, hey, I see you're doing this project. Did you know there were these grants available for what you're doing? Or did you know we could provide, this type of technical assistance? Jonathan, I don't know if you want to say anything more before I bring up that article.
No, I think you can take a seat.
Okay, great. And something we did 2 years ago with the Windham County or the Windham Region CEDS is we kind of put together this Where Are They Now highlight blog post about some projects that have been submitted to the CEDS in the past, and sort of how far they've come since that. So Wheelpad submitted their first CEDS project in 2015, focused on developing this prototype for a temporary sort of addition, bedroom, bathroom, attachable to a home. And since then, Wheelpad has received numerous awards, as well as sold and installed their first Wheelpad. And actually just saw something that they just recently built another one somewhere in Massachusetts, which is really great. Another project that was submitted was the Innovation Ecosystem that was first submitted in 2013. And this was sort of the inception of the Instigate program at our office, at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation office. And so it was initially sponsored by the Windham County Economic Development Program, and has, continues to grow and adds programming and funding and loans, and has interacted with over 145, probably more than 145 at this point, businesses and entrepreneurs to date. And lastly, we highlighted the Westlake project at Mount Snow. So Mount Snow submitted this in 2014. It consisted of construction of a 120 million gallon snowmaking pond. And this project received EB5 funding worth about $52 million and was completed in 2017. So those are just, very, select few projects of, when they first submitted as a CEDS project and sort of the benefits and the milestones that they have completed since then. And I think there's some good examples of, reasons to submit to the CEDS process.
Next, I think Sarah made a really good point there about a good example of that developing that economic development capacity, that fifth objective of the CEDS. That's one of the excellent things about this CEDS process is that it gets a lot of projects that we might not otherwise know about sort of on the record and into the appendix, or we submit to that gets sent along to the EDA to show how the CEDS is being used or how it's aligning with what's going on in the communities. And this allows us to sort of really can help us sort of fast track or get on board with an existing initiative with some potential resources to bring that project to bear. And that's something that is really valuable for us in our work. I think the three projects that we saw were really good examples of some businesses, some nonprofit entities, different scales, different sizes, different focuses, and that's a really good resource to see and to think about projects kind of then and now. The CEDS process does have a lot of benefits, and it's not something that leads to any sort of additional oversight of your project at all. Just support where necessary or where it might be helpful and where it would be welcomed. So the slide here discusses the CEDS project timeline. And so as you can see, we are in that submission period, runs through the first 2 months to March 1st of 2020. And we ask that the proposals, and we'll talk more about those proposals in a moment, that they be submitted no later than 5 o'clock on Sunday, March 1st, to give the project review team a chance to review them and to get together and rank them. And that phase is the month of March. Last year we had a review team that was comprising individuals who are not our colleagues, but were from the public, just some individuals, representatives from finance and from public television, from hospitality, architecture, economic, sort of the Chamber of Commerce, people from all five, like the center of the Duke Valley, the North Shire, the South Shire, Bellows Falls, down towards the Brattleboro area, public officials, business representatives. We really want to get as varied a grouping of 12 individuals as we could. And so we're looking to do that again this year. It's a great way for us to grow sort of the network of people who are involved and to get some perspectives that we might not otherwise have. And so this is a really, it's a bit of a lift on their part, donating their time and their expertise and their insights, but it helps us view the projects from a lot of different perspectives and gives us some insights that we might not otherwise have in our day-to-day. And so that will take place sometime in early April, and then in May 28th at the summit, we'll be releasing that project ranking results, those vital projects, part of the press event, and a good way to put some wind in the sails of the vital projects and also to shine a light on all the projects that have been submitted, as that's really the lifeblood of the CEDS. In our final slide, the next slide, we'll talk a bit about how to submit a project. And so, as mentioned before, those projects that are submitted will be prioritized and ranked based on how the projects advance those CEDS objectives, those 5 objectives that we referred to earlier. We'll also be looking at their readiness to begin, the partners that are involved in the project, and any investments made. Again, this is not to say that a smaller project that is shovel-ready versus a larger project that is still in the feasibility phase is necessarily how the project committee will review that is part of the conversation. But that is we are sort of getting a little bit of information in that submission process about that, as it is something that is relevant to sort of what will happen in the next 12 months. So the project submission form is at sovermontzone.com. CEDS, I think we'll take a peek at that now. Sorry, we'd like to provide a little bit of a walkthrough here.
Yep. So when you go to sovermontzone.com/CEDS, you'll land on this page here. Again, this is a fairly comprehensive page for information about the CEDS. You can see contact information around the CEDS, the organizations that are involved. These two buttons, this will get you the CEDS report that was referenced earlier by Jonathan, and this is the CEDS matrix, which has the objectives and strategies outlined. So these are two good documents to review before you submit something. And then as you scroll down, there are links to the new project form and project update form. And so this, let's start with the new project form. This is what the two forms look like. So Jonathan, if you want to run through sort of what we ask for in these forms, that would be great.
Sure. So as you can see, we have a number of these sort of required fields, but it's something that can be a little bit challenging for entities, especially where there's multi-party projects. We ask that there be a sort of a single contact for the project, and that's mostly just for ease of communication, any sort of clarifications that we may seek. But you can see that there's a geographic region request about what that project, where that project is taking place. Now, there's a lot of options here, but we tried to, because there's a lot of different project scales. So maybe it's a single town, perhaps it is multiple towns, and perhaps it is a sort of a county-wide or region-wide project, but whatever is the best fit for your project, please let us know. And it is not the case that we are prioritizing any one of those categories over the other. It's simply just we have a feel for whether these are local, broader, or full Southern Vermont efforts. And then we also have a category similar to last year about where this project would best be described. And so obviously sometimes workforce development and education projects are taking place in the nonprofit sector, but these are some of the most helpful breakdowns for us. And as you'll see here, private sector, public sector, workforce development, and then infrastructure and transportation, or other. And then there's opportunity to explain that a little bit. But one of the developments, what's new for this year, is that project stage component: exploratory, preliminary, implementation, and then operational maintenance. And there's a bit of a description of each of those 4 stages. And we wanted to bring these to light, to bring the project committee, to give them this information, that there are some projects that are existing, for example, and we're in an operational maintenance phase where we want to expand it in some way, we want to deepen it in some way, or reach new audiences. And that's perhaps sort of an outgrowth of the existing initiative, or it can be all the way through to exploratory, where we're just sort of getting our resources together. We have some partners that we're getting to know, that we all have seen an issue, we want to work to address it. Again, we want to emphasize that we're not looking to favor any of these particular stages, but it does help us frame where things stand, to know with respect to other project components, if we know where in the process you are. And so we asked for a 500-word description and overview. That's just a limit. It does not need to be all 500 words. We wanted to give people adequate space to sort of describe where things are, how it's going, or what the goals are. And then there's a few items here that are sort of yes, no, like, is this ready to go? Have you already started, or is that in the offing? And then some whether or not this is submitted to the 2014 CEDS or perhaps last year's CEDS for Southern Vermont. And so budgeting, if you already have that information available, we'd like to see it here if possible. And then a sort of select all components around business plan or marketing study, feasibility study, if that's sort of what part of this project would entail. And lastly, any partners you may have, any investors you may have, and we do want to be clear that this is, we don't expect or ask that you provide any confidential information, any sensitive information, where we very much want to be respectful of the fact that at preliminary or exploratory phases, perhaps, people are still evaluating, and they would very much like to be able to evaluate in peace and in privacy. And so we very much want to respect that as a necessary part of any sort of project development. So with the sort of farther down, we have the CEDS objectives, and this is a good opportunity to get familiar with the CEDS. If you were a part of this process last year, you've had a chance to review the matrix and the CEDS document itself. But if you're new to it, this is a way for us to sort of apply that first filter of how the project relates to the CEDS. And ultimately, that's an important part of what you want the CEDS to be used for. So there's four broad categories in each of these. For each of these objectives, there's a subset of categories, sort of a yes, no, check the box, if, and you do not need to have the box checked for all of them. We're not looking to have, the full complement of components for each of these objectives. But it's just a good opportunity to have for submitters to find how and where the project aligns with this particular, with this CEDS, and to get a feel for what those characteristics are, which is pretty beneficial as you then take the project out to other potential funders potential funders may be evaluating from public, private, nonprofit, philanthropic elements. The better you know your project, the easier it is for a potential investor to get to know the project as well. And so for each of these objectives, we also ask, in addition to having the boxes checked, that there be a brief 200-word sort of explanation, or 200-word maximum explanation of just how this project will meet the objective and the subset of strategies for each objective. Some successful projects are entirely within one objective. Some successful projects or excellent projects or outstanding projects have a blend, and others are simply focused on one. And there's no preference there. It's really just about understanding at a glance the characteristics of a complex initiative. And then lastly, there's some space for attaching supporting documentation. And obviously, you can be in touch with Sarah if there are any issues with these uploads. But it's an opportunity for us to get a feel for any planning that has gone into the project to date. And it's a good chance for organizations to help us get a little bit of context out to the project review team. It's a great way to get your narrative in front of the project review team and to see how it complements what you're submitting through the form itself. And what's really great is that this doesn't all have to happen in one fell swoop. There is the opportunity to save and resume later. That's so whether you'd like to put that documentation together in a Word doc and then just cut and paste when you've finished those answers. It's up to you, but we do want people to know that they don't have to do this all at once in one sitting at all. Sorry, is there more here, or is this a similar?
Yeah, so this, as was mentioned earlier, there are two different forms. There's the new project submission form or project update form. So the one we just went through was for a new project, and then this is the project update form. So as you can see, it's a lot shorter, and I'll explain sort of the difference of which you should use depending on if you've submitted in the past or not. But for project updates, it's a lot of the same contact information, the geography, the category, the phase, and then a 500-word spot to just give us an update on what has happened since you submitted it last. And again, you can add some files there. I will give you a little description on which form you should use. So for a new project submission, you will use this form if you have never submitted a CEDS project, or you've never, or you submitted to the 2014 Wyndham Region CEDS. So if you submitted to the 2014 Wyndham Region CEDS, even though you did that, we're still asking you to submit as a new project because the forms are different. The CEDS documents, the objectives, the strategies are a little bit different. And so if you have never submitted a project ever, or you had, but it was to the Wyndham Region CEDS, we're asking that you use a new project form so we can gather all of that information that Jonathan went over. And then if you did submit a project last year, so the first year of the Southern Vermont CEDS, then you would use the project update form. So it's, I think, fairly straightforward, but obviously if you have any questions on which form you should be using, feel free to reach out and, you know, we can help clarify that. So again, here's contact information for both Jonathan and I, the web address for where you can find all the forms and any sort of information on the CEDS. And then we'd be happy to take any questions or comments, and hopefully we can answer those for you. So Zahn or Tim, if you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to address those. All right, looks like Zahn's all set. Tim, all good. Seems simple and straightforward. Good. That's what we like to hear.
Red letter day.
Okay, great. Well, if you have any other questions, obviously feel free to contact us as you're going through the form if you're not sure about something. And we look forward to seeing what you submit. All right, everyone have a lovely rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Take care.